Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Lincoln Riley, USC heading on the road across the country to play Maryland Saturday afternoon. And I feel like for both programs, just a must-win football game. USC obviously coming off a really frustrating loss against Penn State. You had the lead in the fourth quarter, weren't able to close it out against what's one of the best teams in the country. And then if you're Maryland, sitting 3-3, 0-3 in conference play, just coming off an embarrassing loss to a Northwestern team at home. Both of these programs need a win in this football game. Excited to get into, I think a few key matchups that we'll see in this football game. Now, before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. It's been a blast doing these preview prediction episodes. The amount of support y'all continue to show, it means the world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And I want to start with this USC offense going up against the Maryland defense that has been okay, but not very good. There are really two things that I'm looking for USC heading on the road and playing this Maryland defense. Number one, USC needs to stick to running the football. If I were to tell you that USC running the football is averaging 5.6 yards per carry, that's 12th best in the country, a lot of USC fans would be fired up about that. 12th best rushing attack in the country in terms of yards per carry. But then I were to tell you you're only running the football 39% of the time, which is 124th. I think that's just mismanagement by Lincoln Riley. And look, I know Lincoln Riley is one of the best offensive minds that we see in the country. But I look at those numbers and say, that's inexcusable, especially with how good this rushing attack has looked over the last couple of weeks. And I think even more importantly, why do teams run the football? I think Kirby Smart said it best in his press conference a couple of days ago. You run the football to control the time possession, and most importantly, you run the football to keep the opposing defensive line honest. You kind of eliminate the ability for these edge rushers to just get up the field and rush the passer. What's been USC's biggest problem on the offensive side of the football? It's been edge rushers getting after the quarterback and pass protection. And so you look at USC and say you're running the football really well. You're struggling to block up edge rushers and pass protection. Why not stick to running the football a little bit more? Not only because it's been really effective, but it's also going to alleviate some of the pressure that we see on these offensive tackles and pass protection. To me, that's puzzling. Woody Marks, Quentin Joyner, they've looked phenomenal all season. This USC offensive line is clearly better run blocking than they are in pass pro. I get that Lincoln Riley is used to having a pass happy offense because of the quarterback play that he's had over the last couple of years. Part of being an elite football coach is knowing what you have on your roster and being able to call plays and design an offense based on your roster's strengths. I look at this USC team and say the strengths right now are running the football, and they're doing it very well. They're just not doing it very often. Now, the second thing I'm looking for here is USC to be explosive in the passing attack. Now, that doesn't mean you throw the football a million times in this football game, but when you do, you want to push the ball down the field because you look at this Maryland defense and say they're only giving up a 56% completion percentage. That's 24th best in the country. They're forcing 2.8 turnovers per game. That's number 2 in the country. This is an aggressive Maryland secondary that wants to jump routes, that wants to get their hands on footballs. Now, the caveat to that is that they're giving up 8.7 yards per pass, which is 112th. They're giving up the explosive play. In my mind, what is the best trait of the USC wide receiver room going into this football game? It's working vertically down the field. I mean, Jacoby Lane, Deuce Robinson, I don't think he gets much better in terms of wide receivers working vertically down the field and hitting explosive plays. That needs to be an element of this USC offense. And again, kind of a frustrating number I'm looking at is, Miller Moss is 45% completion percentage, 20 plus yards down the field. That's one of the top marks in the country. But they're only throwing the football 20 plus yards down the field, 10% of dropbacks. And so they're not doing it very often. So you look at some of the things USC is doing very well, running the football, pushing the ball down the field, and say they're just not doing it all that often over the last couple of weeks. And I think that's been a problem for this USC offense. Can Lincoln Riley, lean into what this USC offense does best? Now, a quick caveat to pushing the ball down the field is Look, when you push the ball down the field, you got to hold up in pass protection. That's been a problem for USC. If you can continue to get that run game going, slow down these edge rushers rushing the passer, I think that could help this USC offensive line and pass protection that, did a decent job against one of the best pass rush units in the country in Penn State. And so there are a couple things that Maryland does well and not so well on the defensive side of the football. I'm looking for USC to really lean into their strengths, but at the same time attack where Maryland has been struggling on the defensive side of the football. Now you flip sides and say this Maryland offense is intriguing. I wouldn't say it's elite, but Billy Edwards, you look at Billy Edwards, the quarterback, he's number 2 in the country in big time throws. Like Billy Edwards can make some big time throws. Now with Billy Edwards, Maryland fans would be the first to admit it's a little bit of a roller coaster with Billy Edwards, but he's kind of a gamer. He can extend plays outside the pocket. He can push the ball down the field. There's a couple of things that you're looking at in this matchup. One, Maryland's rushing attack is pretty much non-existent. They only run the football 45% of the time, 3.6 yards per carry. They have a solid running back in Roman Hemby, but I don't think this Maryland offense is designed to consistently run the football. They want to spread you out. They want to push the football down the field. The two things I'm looking for here is one, you look at Maryland throwing the football and say it goes through 2 wide receivers. It goes through Caden Prather and Ty Felton. Caden Prather has Ty Felton has 78 targets on the year. Caden Prather has 50 targets on the year. The next most targeted pass catcher on this Maryland football team is at the tight end position with 18 targets. The most frustrating aspect about that USC performance on defense against Penn State was you kind of knew who the guy was for Penn State in the passing attack. It was Tyler Warren, and USC didn't really do much to take him away. So Dan Lynn, heading into this matchup, it's no secret where Maryland wants to go with the football in this passing attack. Can you take those 2 wide receivers away? That's question number 1. Number 2, this USC pass rush it's been non-existent. I mean, 3.4% sack rate. That's 118th in the country. Your leading quarterback hurries are Anthony Lucas and Jamil Muhammad with only 6 quarterback hurries on the year. So not only are they not sacking the quarterback, but they're really not impacting the quarterback all that much either. And you look at Billy Edwards, he struggles when he's under pressure. If you're USC, yeah, you want to see some creative blitz packages, but at the end of the day, you can't blitz the quarterback every single time. At some point, you got to rely on your defensive line, your front 4, to get after the passer and create a little bit of disruption. They haven't really been able to do that so far in the 2024 season. So if you're looking at 2 keys for USC, here's one: take away the 2 guys that they want to build this passing attack around, and Caden Prather and Ty Felton. And I think secondly, you got to try to get after the quarterback and impact Billy Edwards. When Billy Edwards has the ability to sit in the pocket and let it loose, he can be a very dangerous quarterback that can put up some points on the board. But if you can get him a little bit uncomfortable, if you can create a little bit of chaos on Billy Edwards, that's kind of how you stop him. That's how you make him uncomfortable. And you look at Maryland, they struggle at the offensive tackle spot. Pretty dang solid in pass protection on the inside, but both of their offensive tackles are the leaders in the team and giving up quarterback hurries. You got to see a big-time performance from some of these edge rushers for USC. Now you get into the pick here, USC 7-point favorites going across the country. I'm going to take USC here. Now, I've been kind of a firm believer that I think this USC team is a pretty dang good football team. They're sitting at 3-3. They beat LSU on a neutral site. You take a look at their 3 losses. Again, they lost all 3 of these games having leads in the second half, 2 of which against Michigan and Penn State. Penn State, one of the best teams in the country. Like, this USC team's not very far away from kind of getting where they need to be. They just haven't come up with the plays in the big moments. You look at Maryland, you talk about a team that just seems to be going in the wrong direction. That's kind of where I'd sit with Maryland. I think they have some talent on the offensive side of the football. Like Billy Edwards, again, he can be a dynamic quarterback that can create outside the pocket, that can use his legs, that can push the ball down the field. They have some weapons on the outside, but they're not as complete of a team as USC. This is a circles the wagon kind of game for USC. Like, you kind of feel like if Lincoln Riley loses this football game against Maryland, the conversations about Lincoln Riley and his future at USC, they're really going to pick up if they're not picked up already. So if you're USC, got to win this football game. I think they will win this football game. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.